I'm Mangazi with Business Time on Times. This is a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines. In today's program, fuel prices up 96% in 4 months. We look at the economic implications of the decision. Also in the program, Majete Wildlife Reserve grosses over $1 million in annual revenue in 2025. We have these and other stories. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome. The Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority MERA increased petrol prices by 41.6% and diesel by 41.1% on January 20. This brought the total rise in petrol and diesel prices to 96% and 80% respectively in 4 months, while government maintains cautious optimism about achieving 4% growth in 2026 and 5% in 2027. The fuel price shock has significantly increased downside risks to these projections. We have more in this report.
Last week's fuel price jump marks the second major fuel increase in 4 months, bringing the total rise in petrol and diesel prices to 96% and 80% respectively. The timing could not be worse for an economy that was showing tentative signs of stabilizing. Inflation had declined to 26% in December 2025 from 27.9% in November, marking the lowest level since January 2023. But economists warn the fuel price increase will likely reverse these gains. This is what economist Marvin Banda said.
Because transport is demand derived, you see that things that require ferrying are going to see the prices increase. And right now we're in a lean period where we're going to the period where we're meant to start harvesting. So the expectation is that people are going to require transportation to get food from the various fields to their destinations. And so because transportation usually also sees an increase, for example, in diesel consumption, you see an increase in uptake during that period due to the fact that there's a sheer number of transportation requirement to get food into the required markets. And so with that increase that you're also expecting to see right now, it will also bring an unexpected halt to the level of food inflation, because food inflation has been dropping quite recently, and the macro fundamentals were citing that if food inflation does start to decrease and it dips below non-food inflation, then we might also start to see interest rates coming down. However, when you see that food inflation is going to remain elevated because fuel is really big part of the non-food component of the CPI, you see that then the implication of interest rates is that maybe the Reserve Bank might hold their decision to think about dropping prices.
The immediate impact is already visible in public transport fares. Commuters who previously spent 2,000 kwacha a day to get to work now need over 3,000 kwacha, while food prices are expected to rise as transport costs surge. Commodity prices have already started to go up following the previous fuel hike implemented in October and this month's increase in the sales tax. Consumers Association of Malawi Executive Director John Capito had this to say.
This increase would have been much more minimal, in terms of the magnitude of the increase. But then they tampered around. They interfered with the operations of MERA. As a board, MERA could not do anything because they were clipped. They couldn't do anything in terms of making sure that they're gradually increasing the prices of fuel. Well, that would not trigger so much of pain as it has done now. Make sure that the market is clean and the people are not as unscrupulous as they have always been. We don't want people that will take advantage of the poor. It's because of fuel. People have suffered a lot already.
The fuel price shock comes at a critical moment for government economic projections. Finance Minister Joseph Mwanamveka has projected economic growth of 4% in 2026, reflecting a significant recovery amid tight monetary conditions, high domestic debt, and lingering food supply pressures. The fuel price increase could undermine these already modest projections in several ways. Higher transport costs will increase the price of essential goods, eroding household purchasing power and dampening consumer spending, which is a key driver of economic growth. Businesses will face higher operating costs, potentially forcing them to cut production or lay off workers. The inflationary pressure could also prompt the Reserve Bank to maintain or even increase interest rates, making credit more expensive and further constraining private sector investment. There are, however, some potential positives from the fuel price adjustment. The move to an automatic pricing mechanism could help ensure sustainable fuel supply, ending the chronic shortages that plagued the country under the previous fixed pricing system. Improved fuel availability could reduce business disruptions and support economic activity, particularly in transport-dependent sectors. The government is also hoping that the fuel price adjustment will help satisfy International Monetary Fund requirements as it negotiates a new support package. But for these positive developments to materialize, the government will need to implement complementary policies to cushion vulnerable households from the immediate shock of higher fuel prices. The outlook for 2026, therefore, remains highly uncertain. Much will depend on how quickly inflation stabilizes, whether the Reserve Bank can begin cutting interest rates to support growth, and whether the government can successfully negotiate IMF support and implement promised economic reforms.
Majete Wildlife Reserve has for the first time grossed over $1 million in annual revenue, marking a significant milestone in the park's 22-year transformation under African Parks Management. Park manager John Adendorf disclosed the achievement during a familiarization tour by Principal Secretary for Tourism, Jean Nyembe. He attributes the success to growing international visitors numbers and steady year-on-year growth despite economic challenges.
Well, it's been an incredible journey. If it wasn't for Malawi, we wouldn't have had a first park to start with. It was the first park in our portfolio. And because of Malawi, we've been very successful across the continent now. We protect close to 2 million hectares, or 20 million hectares, sorry. And that's double the size of Malawi in context. So we're very grateful to Malawi and been given the recognition in the early days in 2003 to be able to operate, and having the trust and faith in us to pull this off and make Majete and the rest of the park such a huge success in Malawi. Well, so I can only speak on behalf of Majete as I run this park, but it's actually really good. It's picking up year on year. We're all facing economical challenges, but Majete has seen a growth and a steady growth over the years. COVID was a bit of a slump, but everybody expected that. But since then, it's really picked up nicely. We're seeing international visitors increase. This week is unusual. We're seeing nearly a full lodge in Majete. And usually January, February are very poor months, but we're getting good bookings. So this year, 2025 at least, last year, was the best year Majete ever had. The first time ever we grossed over $1 million for Majete. So we're approaching 14,000 visitors now. And if you think back in 2003 when we started, we actually had 3 visitors the entire year to the park. So going from that to nearly 14,000 visitors has been an incredible growth. Yeah, well, I can only speak on behalf of African Parks. That's totally untrue. Every cent we make stays in Majete. So we're running at 33% sustainability ratio. So every bit of money that's made, I'm one of the very few expats that get paid a salary, but I get paid by donors outside of the country. But the money made in Majete stays in Majete, and that's our slogan in all the parks we work in Africa. We do not spend money outside of the country. We're in partnership with the government of Malawi, and we're here to assist the government of Malawi. So we're a non-profit organization. We don't work for profits, but we do want to get a commercial entity going so these parks are sustainable. So our biggest accolade will be when this park is sustainable and it can carry itself. So as far as African parks goes, we do not invest a cent outside of the country, only in our relevant parks that we manage. I think we all got to work together and we got to find packages. We've got incredible destinations, we've got incredible people in Malawi. Culture in Malawi is rich, but we need to learn to work together, and we must sell packages. We've got Malanji, we've got Nika, we've got the lake. The lake is such an incredible destination. It's unique. There's no other place in the world like the Malawi lake, and all the endemic fish species and the crystal clear waters. So I think if we promote that and then we attract to these big 5 destinations, we've really got a nice product in Malawi. Well, we continue to develop, and we realize the communities are everything. If the communities aren't walking the same walk as us, we're not going to succeed. So this youth camp is based on educating the youth and making sure they're successful, and they see conservation as a benefit, because it's your natural heritage at the end of the day, and we all need to protect it. But not everybody sees it as a viable economic solution to the country's problems. Tourism can really be of huge benefit to the country, and the environment is rich in Africa, so we need to protect it. And for us, it's about that and educating people. So we've got a lot of developments in Majete, but a lot of it now is focused at educating the youth and educating people outside of the reserve to actually appreciate it. Ours is pretty good, and it's elsewhere in Africa, it's really bad. But again, if you work hand in hand with your communities, you're going to succeed. If you don't work with your communities, you won't succeed. So we're very proud of that. As far as statistics go, we've got some of the lowest incursions anywhere on the continent for a protected area. So we're very proud of that.
Principal Secretary Nyenyembe had this to say on the reserve's operations.
I'm very impressed, honestly. I've been wondering throughout to say how are the animals tracked, and how are the people when they come here, how safe are they, especially that people come from very far, knowing that you are coming to a site where there are animals all over, and not just animals but dangerous animals where you are not so safe. And again, when you also come out from your house, you're also thinking of where am I going to sleep, how safe is that that place. So yeah, when I came last night, I was given a room to sleep. At first I also had my own reservations, but I've also tested that no, it's just as safe as you can think like you are sleeping at your own home. So I can assure whoever wants to come, the tourists all over, even here from Malawi, from outside, they are very safe, and they are going to enjoy themselves. What has mostly touched me is on the security side. There are a number of controls that have been put in place. So one can be able to walk around without even feeling that he's going to be attacked with the animals. There are devices that each one is given whenever you just enter from the gate, meaning you are being tracked all over. So even if maybe you meet an animal, it means even them at their head office, through the control system that they have, they're able to see that I think there's somebody here who is at risk, and then take precautionary measures before anything happens. So that is really key to somebody who is coming to see the animals. Again, we have the big 5, which people talk about. We have been reading, people here in Malawi or elsewhere, they have been reading about the big 5. Maybe they have not seen them. If they come here, the big 5 are there. And I think what is also unique about Majete is about the rhinos. I hear we have the unique type of rhino species called the black rhino, which is not anywhere else. So even though you can find them in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, or the others, but you will not find this species of the black rhino. So if they want to come, I think they can come and see it from here, Majete. Even the vegetation, the environment, I think is so welcoming. Yeah, the people here are doing a good job.
This is Business Time, a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. We'll be right back. Welcome back. A study by the Construction and Industry Regulatory Authority has revealed that public projects worth $2.3 billion are shrouded in secrecy, breaking the law and posing serious implementation risks. The study, conducted under the Infrastructure Transparency Initiative, sampled 19 climate finance projects across the country with a total cost of $2.7 billion, finding that only projects worth $360 million provided adequate information. We have more in this report.
The study looked at disclosure requirements and how the project implementers complied. Out of the $2.7 billion projects, only projects worth $360 million were transparent enough to provide adequate information, and Central Region projects were the worst. The secrecy in the public projects is an infringement of both CIRA and Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Acts, according to CIRA Chief Executive Officer Gerard Konje.
It is very important as Construction Industry Regulatory Authority. We find it very, very important for transparency and accountability in implementation of projects. And that's the reason why, even within our systems, we have already incorporated issues of transparency and accountability. You know, when CIRA was established towards the end of last year, our new legislation, our new laws have incorporated issues of transparency and accountability, because we are also promoting professionalism in the implementation of projects. For us to have quality projects and value for money, we need to operate professionally, following standards, and being accountable in how our resources are utilized. Indeed, when you see this report, actually it's the first of its kind, and Malawi is actually the first country to implement such assessment. So we are setting the pace. The findings revealing in that they are setting the ground and the baseline so that we are able to know and understand what is happening, and the gaps identified. As a CIRA, we issued a communique last week that actually highlights a number of basic non-negotiables that are supposed to guide the construction industry in Malawi. And if you look at the provisions that have been highlighted there, issues of transparency and accountability are incorporated. And we also issued what are called infrastructure delivery management standards. These standards stipulate what needs to happen at every phase of the construction value chain, which means when you are conceiving a project, there are certain things that you need to follow, even during the design, the procurement, the implementation, as well as the operation and maintenance of the various infrastructure that we do implement in the country. And issues of transparency and accountability are incorporated at each and every level. And when I was speaking earlier on, I also highlighted some specific elements that all stakeholders need to abide by. It is very, very important for all stakeholders to operate professionally, as well as mainstream transparency and accountability in their day-to-day operations. This should not be taken as an add-on. You are all aware that even under the Public Procurement Act, issues of disclosure started happening way before this program came into existence in the country. So this program actually enhances that and actually takes it further to look at the whole value chain up to the time handover of a project is done, up to the time various stakeholders are utilizing the products of infrastructure. There are actually some infrastructure that have actually failed. There are also some infrastructure that has withstood the shocks of climate change. As CIRA, we are enforcing standards. We had some limitations before the law was reviewed. Originally, we were only able to enforce on registered members. But sometimes the quality of infrastructure is a product of the conduct of various parties to a contract. Sometimes the quality of infrastructure is because the budget is limited. You have a small amount to do a particular infrastructure. What you get is a structure that perhaps can work for just a few years because of the budget limitations. But at the same time, how parties conduct themselves in delivery of that infrastructure has a contribution to the final quality of infrastructure. So as CIRA, we have done a number of interventions. Number one is developing infrastructure delivery management standards, which guide the construction process from conceiving a project, implementing it, and delivering it, as well as maintaining it. Because some of the infrastructure that has failed is because that particular road or that particular building has not been maintained for a long time. So the deterioration was happening little by little. The other initiative that we have put in place is infrastructure technical audits. This is where significant projects are going to be audited at different stages. Are they construction ready? Is the design comprehensive enough? Are the parties conducting themselves accordingly in the delivery of those infrastructure projects? If there are some non-compliances, CIRA will also come in to issue stop orders, and now the CIRA has been empowered even to demolish unsafe structures. So we have that power to do that. But that demolition will not just happen automatically. We have to undertake a technical audit and assess and see whether there are any remedial works that can be done. If no remedial works can be done safely, then those structures are going to be demolished before they actually collapse on people and kill people. Actually, CIRA's mandate covers all construction, as long as it's construction, even a personal construction project, a public construction project, a private construction project, whether by NGOs, private companies, individuals, government entities, and any other institution. As long as you are doing construction, you fall in the realm, the regulatory realm of the Construction Industry Regulatory Authority.
Coast International Board Chairperson Rajiv Lau said projects that do not disclose information have high chances of cutting corners, corruption, and poor execution, costing government huge resources.
I should say that this is the first report of its kind which focuses on climate finance and how funding for infrastructure is being allocated for the purposes of climate alignment, particularly for resilience and adaptation. What we're finding in the report based on available information. Remember, this is a first, it's a pilot study, so it's not surprising. What it shows is there are gaps in information, there is lapses perhaps in certain areas of disclosure. These are gaps that need to be filled to start with, so that we have a body of reliable information and data that we can use more effectively to do a deeper diagnosis. So right now we are just identifying things. This report helps to identify gaps in information collection mostly. Once we've filled those gaps, hopefully, by taking action on the recommendations of this report, we will have much more effective tools for actually improving the design and the implementation of infrastructure going forward. So this is a work in progress. It will take time.
According to Konje, CIRA will follow up with non-complying project implementers to abide by the law.
Well, with that story, we've come to the end of today's edition of Business Time here on Times Television. It is a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Chimomo Mangazi. But always remember, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. Bye for now.